In the gospel that we have read today, if we use the perspective of biology, we could say that Jesus is talking about one particular relationship between two species. In technical terms, in biology, it is called symbiosis. Now, what is this particular relationship between these two species? The wheat, from where we get bread, and the weeds that will make it difficult for the wheat to bear harvest. That kind of relationship that harms the wheat is called parasitism. Let us explore how many kinds of parasitism there is. I cannot enumerate all kinds. I'll just specify some kinds of parasitism. The first one, maybe the kids know it in their science courses. The first one is obligate parasitism. When we call it an obligate parasitism, the parasite needs the host to be able to complete its life cycle. One example is malaria. Malaria starts in water, maybe in the streams or in the rivers. Then it gets to the human body. And when it gets to our body, we become the host so that it completes its life cycle. In the process, we are harmed and we get sick. That is obligate parasitism. The second one is facultative parasitism. Some plants cannot grow stems. They don't have stems, so they need the branches and the trunk of other plants to be able to grow on their own. So that is facultative. Some orchids are like that. They just perch on the branches. They don't usually harm, but they also need the benefit of those trees or shrubs. That is facultative. Let's move on to something that is more specific to the gospel today. There is what we call necrotrophic parasitism. Necro has something to do with the dead. Philo, love. It loves its host dead. It even eats parts of its host. Some fungi are like that. And that fungi is very dangerous if it grows on your face. It will eat you up. Some bacteria are like that too. Leprosy is like that. Some fungi, so some people are very careful about it because some people might ask that, what is that? Is that a face where some fungi have grown? Or is that a fungus where a face has grown? So that's the difficulty with having parasites like those fungi. The other one is biotrophic. This one is maybe the better course, a better subject. It's not about death. There's a species of fungi like mushrooms in southern Spain that lives under the ground, and then it creeps. It looks for the roots of other plants. Because it does not have so much power of its own to generate food, they need the roots of other plants to get food. But in turn, they grow potatoes. So these are different kinds of potatoes. They're not the normal potatoes because when you eat them, they taste like mushrooms. They're fungi, actually. That is a biotrophic parasitism. Lastly, this one may sound common to you. It is social parasitism. There is what we call social parasites. For example, a bumblebee. A bumblebee does not like to take care of its children. So what does it do? It raids the nests of other bees and they put their young there. So the other bees take care of their young. That is a bumblebee. That is a social parasite. Another one is some species of ants. They're very lazy to walk. You can see ants, they walk around. But some ants are very lazy to walk. You know what they do? They ride on the other ants. They use the other ants for their transportation. Thank you. They are social parasites. Why are we talking about parasites? Because the gospel, the parable, is about parasitism. Jesus is not talking about biology to us, certainly. But Jesus is talking to his disciples, illustrating to them that sometimes in our midst there is parasitism, and we are shy to talk about it. Why? Because the parasites are in our families, or the parasites are in our communities, and we want to save the face of the parasite. We become like the bees, whom the bumblebee uses as slaves to feed their young. Or we become like the ants, whom other ants ride on. What is the attitude that Jesus discloses to us in the parable? It is an attitude of tolerance. The bees don't die. The bumblebees thrive. The ants don't die. Some other ants ride on. The wheat don't die, but the weeds ride on or also thrive along with them. Similarly, in our human communities, in our families perhaps, even in our church community, even in work, there are what we call, for lack of a better term, let's call them social parasites. Are we going to kill all of them? Dismiss all of them from your ranks? Cut them off from the community? The lesson of the Lord is a lesson on tolerance. Saint Dominic, the founder of the Dominican order, is addressed as a tolerant master. He is a master of tolerance. And because of that, there is always joy in his face. It's like maybe Dominic is thinking, what kind of social parasite is this? He's happy about it. But more than that, there is grace from the Spirit. There is power from the Lord to allow us to be patient, to allow us to exercise maximum tolerance. But at the same time, it allows us to be at peace with ourselves, to be at peace with our families, so that we can thrive together until harvest. Let us learn this lesson from the Lord, so that not only we may avoid anger or dissent among our communities, but more than that, so that we may teach others the lesson from the parable. And that lesson is a lesson of life. This lesson is a lesson of thriving. This lesson is a lesson of survival. Let us pray that as we receive the Lord in the banquet of His Word and in the banquet of the Eucharist, we may learn the meaning of tolerance.